Hit the lights!
You've discovered the Halfwatt podcast. We want to educate and entertain by tapping into the most trusted source of new technology, the ones installing and innovating it. You, the tradespeople that build from the ground up. Join us as we talk with industry leaders, veteran contractors, and even some young blood.
We had almost 2 technicians go to blows over a problem at a place and it was wire. It wound up being water mitigation problem in the underground wiring. Okay, and one technician says it's not the panel, and one technician said yes, it is. And the one who said it was the underground wiring was right.
Yeah.
You know, and so they eventually, of course, we replaced the panel and nothing changed. So then,
Right.
you know, okay, the only obvious thing left is the damn wire. So as they pulled that wire out and put in the right wire, I have samples of that I show students, and it's FPL. I think it's FPL R or P, and
But it's still not waterproof
pink,
though.
Beautiful, and then there's another piece that's brown, and then there's jet black.
Yeah.
And then the jet, it's all the same wire. So, yeah. So I thought, I remember when that building
Was put in.
I remember. I don't remember
You're
who
old.
put it in, but I remember. Well, it wasn't that long. I was working for another company. I was working for United, and I serviced it as a United tech, working on something entirely unrelated. Never would have dawned on me. Oh,
Check the wire.
check the wire. Yeah, and well, I didn't have that kind of a problem when I was working on a duct detector or some nonsense, or inspecting it, one of the two. So then years later, our company goes down there, works on it, has this problem. And then I'm minding my own business as I do. I sent JB, when he worked for us, out to a place in Wilsonville. And then those guys went crackers trying to find this. It was a notifier system. They were trying to find a module that was just
Wonky,
not talking. It was going wonky.
I had one in an Avamere.
Well, so I show up and I'm like, hey, I've, you know, where's your maintenance guy? Maintenance guy's on vacation. So I said, well, do you mind if I go root around his office? And so she goes, no, go right ahead. So I rooting around his office and I pop up this map of everything in the complex, right?
Nice.
And I'm thinking, well, there's an obvious vault in the front. There's an obvious fire vault in the front. And that's where we all thought that the modules would be, but that's not where they were. And so I look on this map and they allude to another vault on the other property. So basically the sprinkler system fed dual feed.
Oh,
So there was 2 ways of providing sprinkler water and
the
domestic
building.
water
Yeah.
into this complex.
Gotcha.
And the fire system was monitoring both. And of course there wasn't enough resolution on the label to tell you, hey, you know,
I'm not water rated.
well, that too. But hey, this is the southeast vault, and this is the north vault. Okay, so kids, when we label things, be freaking accurate.
Right.
Don't just go vault. Okay, don't just say vault. Don't make me slap you. Anyway,
Be
so
nice,
I
Mike.
go.
You're supposed
go
to
out,
bring them in,
I'm
not
out there.
chase them away.
I go out there and I'm looking around, and I'm the manager weasel, right? So I'm not supposed to be there any damn way. So I'm looking around. I'm like, God, this has got to be just super, super stupid simple.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I find the other vault. I open it up, and there's nothing in it. It's like a domestic vault. And then there's this little tiny vault next to it. And I'm thinking, well, that's got to be the bypass for the domestic. I'm not even going to open that damn vault up. So I take my tweaker. I pop open a few doors on the what the sprinkler riser is, because you can do that. I'm looking at all there's everything in the riser is
special riser
correct.
key, right?
Yeah, except that all the wiring coming out of the ground is FPLR, all of it.
Yeah.
So it's all the wrong wiring. So I went, oh, well, there's another problem, but that can't be the issue. I go back to that little tiny vault. I finally open this thing up, and it's a bypass for the other vault. And I thought, what the hell?
Yeah.
I never had seen that. It doesn't mean that it's not unique. It was unique to me, but it was not unique to the industry. So if you shut off the domestic, there is a bypass for that. So you can work on this backflow and bypass that to still let people shower, because when you shut a whole complex off at 5, they're likely to come after you with torches. There's a fire line, but the fire line was in the other vault, which had the sensors, or had the switches on the tampers, but no sensors. And they only tampered one, by the way. There's 2 valves, only tampered one. I look up underneath this vault, this domestic bypass vault, and that's where the goddamn thing's at. Up against the top where the condensation from the, if you go into a vault, it drips from the top. Because this is Oregon and it's wet. I looked up there and there it is, and it's a dual point monitor. The notifier is a single and a dual, and I'm like, I got to get one of these. And nobody who had a notifier had one, of course. How can you not have a notifier? This is a side note. How the hell can you not have the parts?
It's real easy. Remember when they came up, I worked for Central ESL down here?
Yeah.
JIT, Just-in-Time Manufacturing.
Just-in-Time Manufacturing.
I renamed it. It's called GenQuit, just not quite in time. We couldn't get 611 smoke detectors because the plastics came from China back in 93.
Oh, God.
GenQuit. And think about it now. There's no stock. GenQuit, just not quite in time. How's that working, guys?
Oh my God!
And gals.
And if you use gen and add the last suffix on that, you'll know what smoke detectors we're talking about. Yeah, because they're big square ones. You could kill a brother with one of these detectors. They're not small.
But yeah, so they went. I remember when ADT went to zero stock.
Yeah,
our customers were angry.
Yeah.
Because when I first moved up here in '85, people loved ADT because our service was top notch.
And it was fast.
And we took care of our customers. I mean, especially the prepay ones that had maintenance agreements. Unfortunately, that's kind of why I left in '93, because when they got bought out, they didn't. I got tired of getting yelled at every time I went to a service call.
No, I totally get it.
I got tired
totally
of it.
get it. I totally get it. I've chased that around like thus far since you and I have been sitting here. We've talked about conduits. We've talked about moisture. We've talked about outside, AVs, horn strobes. We've talked about
inside
NACs.
stuff.
We've talked about old smoke detectors, wiring, elevator recall.
Yeah. Normally
closed. Real quick, I want to go back to that elevator recall function. The elevator, just for I know this. I'm not trying to say this is only an Oregon or Southwest Washington podcast, because it's not. It's a nationwide thing. But in Oregon, which is the tip of the spear for limited energy, I think. Tip of the spear.
Okay.
I do. I really do. I think we're on the. Maybe I'm wrong. What the hell? I live here, but there was an idea. The spirit behind elevator recall was always that, obviously, within 21 feet of center line, you would trip that cab and it would recall, and you do primary and alternate recall and all that good stuff.
Well, the whole spirit of that, and I remember when it came in, is you don't want it opening on a fire floor.
Right. Bad. It's bad when it opens where the fire is.
And then in the old days, they had the photo beam, so when the smoke hit a photo beam, it never closed and moved. And like all codes, it's tombstone technology. Somebody died.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
The photo beam on the doors.
When the smoke, when this first happened, and elevator guy, call in and correct me if you will, but the doors opened on a fire floor, the heavy smoke came in.
Okay.
They never closed again.
Because the door thinks there's somebody in the door, but the doors never closed.
The door never closed.
That's why the doors just force their way closed no matter what.
Well, and you don't have beams anymore. You have pressure sensors.
No, they're using beams.
But when you hit emergency recall, that overrides
it doesn't matter, because you could
everything.
put your hand in there and that door was going to close.
It's going to close.
Okay, I did not know that. So that was
the whole idea. Get that elevator to the safe floor, and if occupants are in there, they're down to the safe floor, and now you can't use it. But if you're a firefighter, that's why they get the special key, and they can take it anywhere they want because they're geared up.
Kids don't leave the key in the cab and walk out of that cab if you're in fire mode.
They got the SCBA, they got the Nomex suits, all that. A friend of mine was a firefighter. So, yeah, that's where that came from.
So with shunt trip specifically.
That's a different reason it came.
Another reason for shunt trip, right? And that's because of the sprinkler systems, and you don't want to have
electrocute the firefighters.
all that good stuff. So the shunt trips were designed to be in dual contact, and I'm going to pick on Chemtron, like Chemtron 601 dual contacts.
Or an Edwards.
Or an
281.
You are 281. So specifically so the PLC or your fire panel was not controlling the logic into the shunt trip. So I was talking...
But go back 25, 30 years, that logic wasn't solid like it is now.
Oh, I understand that. I was talking to Hartung before I
Yeah.
left PSI, and he and I were talking about that because the inspectors now have to have an elevator mechanic
Right.
present when they do recall testing, and they want it tested thoroughly.
Correct.
And they want both signatures on the card. And so I made
Washington too.
Yeah,
'Cause
well,
when I
yeah, but
did-
Washington's kind of on the cutting edge of that.
Yeah,
They're
'cause when I did
sort of
that
ahead
one-
of Oregon.
When I
there.
did that one thing across the river there, I won't mention the name, but they waited till the elevator guy was there with us, the
Yeah.
elevator person, and then the elevator inspector did his thing, and Vancouver Fire said, "Okay, we're good," because I like them. Come on, they're good people. I know all of them over there. They're all good people.
Okay, you're right.
Thank you.
I'm wrong.
I can be right once in a while.
You're right. I'll be nice. Well, that's true because one of my fire marshals up there, I love her. Jackie's just she just as soon as she starts talking, I'm just all ears. I love her accent. So you're right. All right, I'll back off. But Washington's way ahead of that.
Yes,
and
they
they
are.
have been way ahead of it because they demand that the shunt trips be tested. So Doug, when he was working for the German company, said, "Yeah, we would just trip these things flat out and have a high voltage guy come and replace them because in Washington they are not usually relay based."
Right.
So I was talking to Hartung, and Hartung said, "Yeah, well, we don't want the fire system to come back and tell the relay to close because if that logic doesn't happen, the shunt trip won't trip." So, okay, how often does a fire panel not reach out and turn a relay on? Well, it can't if there's sprinkler flowing. If there's water flowing in it, it won't. If there's water on the relay, right,
not.
shorts out the SLC, it won't. So there are a couple of times, or if this thing's resetting, if it's rebooting. Like if an SLC system, an analog addressable system is rebooting itself and it misses that, it won't trip it. So there's a couple of times when a PLC will screw up. Yeah, you're right. But that's why they expected there to be conventional heads. But no one really said that's what they want. No one really said, no, we will only use conventional heads.
It was said a while ago, but it got changed.
It kind of morphed.
Yeah.
And so they would like it to go back to that, but there's not an engineer in town who's drawing up plans without using a relay base.
You're talking to one.
Well, but how many times have you put a conventional dual contact Edwards heat in?
Lots
Okay.
prior to,
Right.
when I
but now
at a big
we're all
plant
putting,
on the west side.
right.
But once they relax that and are able to prove, like for instance, the EST system, if it's in degrade mode, any alarm on any SLC will make everything go.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh, so it has a fail-safe
It has a
mode?
fail-safe, and that relay, unfortunately, that relay and every other relay on the circuit, if pin 5 goes solid on the rail on an EST system, if it goes hot, goes plus, I think it's pin 5, and if it's not, Martin's going to call in and correct me because that's what he does. When pin 5 goes hot, if you have degrade mode selected, whether the CPU's rebooting or not,
Really?
the SLC cards are still talking to the babies. They've lost the mothership, but unless the SLC card went bad, it's still talking to all the things.
I did not know that.
And when it goes into alarm, it may not know the exact logic what to do, but when pin 5 goes hot on an EST system, boom, every relay will go if it's set for degrade mode.
I did not know that. So there's a fail-safe
There
set
can be.
into
Yeah.
to EST. Huh. That is a pretty intuitive thing.
Yeah, so the SLC cards can lose the mothership, the CPU, and if degrade mode is selected, and you can select it by relay if you want even.
Okay.
There's a little box you check. How do I know? Because I almost evac to fab one time because I didn't unselect
That's
it.
a fun day.
Yeah. So
It's a fun day when everybody's in their bunny suits looking at you.
haven't
and they're
done it
all-
yet,
They're
knocking
giving
on
you the
wood.
stink eye.
Right.
Oh, I watched Wacker get.
Oh, yeah. I
I
watched
watched Wacker get when it was open. I watched it get evacuated.
Wafer Tech out in Camas. I watched Simplex evac them. Poor old
happens.
sergeant was in there getting
Oh my
screamed
God.
at.
Those
But-
people get so mad.
So yeah, the shunt
And
trip.
I mean, rightfully so.
I think the elevator code was a little more behind the fire code.
Yeah, it is.
And for good reason. I'm not knocking elevator code, but I think because the systems are getting better, it's like, okay, you can have that.
All right.
But it makes testing them a son of a gun.
It does.
And with the LEA like
In
we
the-
are,
with the
we're not
conventionals,
supposed
it makes it son of a
because you're
gun.
not supposed to unscrew that
No, I know.
120 volt when it has 120 volt on a dual circuit, you're not supposed to unscrew it and short those terminals.
I had an inspector do that.
Yeah.
And if you and they inadvertently put 120 right down the SLC.
Boom.
And here's what saved my life on that. Saved theirs as well. It tripped, put 120 on the SLC as a notifier system, and it killed everything in the elevator equipment room, everything, right?
Yeah.
And it shot into the first box, and it took out the smoke detector outside the elevator equipment room, and then the SLC made a right, and the 120 made a left.
Oh, thank goodness.
And it was because the wire nut happened to be just close enough to the box that there was less resistance to jump onto the box and trip out into ground than to go all the way through all those devices. And so I sent my notify guy out there, and he replaces. He goes, "You're not going to believe this," and he goes, "I have replaced 7 devices, and that's it. No motherboard, no nothing."
Wow.
Yeah. Notifiers are pretty. I mean, it's a tank.
Yeah, there's this big campus in the middle of Beaverton.
Yeah.
That.
I didn't know they're all notifier.
No, it's the Siemens panel.
Yeah. Okay.
And
that's right. Cause
one of the sheet metal folks did the wiring or whatever. Or it was somebody not qualified, and they landed 120, and it took out every single device plus one of the cards in the panel.
Oh, that's an expensive day.
It was an expensive day for that particular trade.
That's an expensive day.
And then, of course, the due date for lighting it up doesn't ever change.
No. You blew every device.
Every single device on the SLC had to be replaced.
Oh my God.
And somebody saved one of the duct detectors. I think I probably got a picture in the archives. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. It was definitely
Which is why we use control relays separate from the head. And then that way, if there is 120 and you have to have the full voltage, not an LEA has to touch it, we can
isolate it.
They always would.
And you want to use relays that are rated for 120.
Correct.
Or you want to use an MR101 with an
interposing.
And
with some people asked me that when I was doing design a lot. Well, that's just costing us more money. No, we're saving you money in the long run because technically your fire alarm person with their LEA is not licensed to touch 120.
Right.
Do they do it all the time? I can't speak to that.
I can neither confirm or deny the presence of nuclear weapons in the trunk of my VW.
Correct.
Or whether people who are not
licensed touch 120 when they're not supposed to.
When they're not supposed to. So. But I'm winking.
Right.
What a crazy law. But but getting a high voltage person to match when you need them, especially when you're swapping out NAC panels. Like, this has been an all notifier night. I went out to swap out a notifier NAC years ago, and I worked for another company. And you unplug the power supply from the motherboard. Yeah. Take the motherboard, stomp on it, put the new one in it, and plug the transformers right back onto it, and you're done.
Let's back up. You said stomp on it. Please, kids, stomp on it. Do not leave a maybe board anywhere. We had a gentleman at a place I worked, will remain unnameless, but people that know me know who I'm talking about, would save boards. And then when managers were screaming because they needed it, you get a maybe board.
Don't do that.
What's
this? I wonder what this one.
Right.
Remember that intermittent fault you chased for 3 years? Yeah, it's on that board. That's
you break that board in half because they don't repair them anymore.
Recycle it, kids. Right? You're supposed to recycle it.
And electronic recycling. But oh man, I had a supervisor one time. I wrote NFG when we first started getting. It was the Focus system with ADT. And its first dive into electronics, and I always wore my grounded wrist strap, and none of my panels ever blew up.
Oh, no kidding.
Everybody else's panels blew up.
So you took ESD serious.
I took ESD seriously, and I've never blown up a panel or a board except when I didn't have my grounded wrist strap on. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I had this supervisor that suddenly turned a leaf, and he was the most, foul-mouthed drunken sailor, and he found the savior, whatever he did, and he didn't like anything. And I wrote NFG and Sharpie. Oh. I know what that means. I know what that means. I know it. Oh, really? Tell me, Joe. I can't speak like that anymore. Well, I can tell you in front of everybody. I can say it on this broadcast. Not functioning good. What were you thinking?
Right. Not functioning good.
What were you thinking?
That's not what I was thinking. Well, you know what I was thinking.
I know, but see...
It takes every bit of self-control I have not to swear like a drunken sailor.
I know, me too.
All the time.
Trust me, Mike. You've heard me in the office when someone lights me up.
everything I've got.
I think that's why Charles moved me to the back, because I was up front.
I'm surprised it didn't move me to the back, because I can really light them up, and I don't mean to. That's a habit I should probably learn how to quit, but it's so...
Well, I listened to my first podcast. I don't think I said one bad word that whole time.
No, but I have on several occasions.
But you're the host. You can just do whatever you want.
But still. I mean, when you're teaching and you have to think about, you're...
I let one fly the other night.
I did too.
And the students looked at me and said, we're all in construction. It's fine. I said, no.
No, it's just...
That's rules for you. I'm the instructor. I'm held to a different standard.
I have to go wash my mouth out with soap.
But no, I'm starting to like it. I was... well, you know why I took that instructor position, right? Was so my wife could quit her job.
Oh, no kidding?
Yeah. I wanted, because, she had heart failure and all that before she passed.
Yeah.
And, she passed before I did my first, when I had my first class, when I wasn't just a sub. But I'm starting to like it.
Yeah,
I haven't done it since '84. I was regional training manager.
It's kind of like, I don't know what it there's every once in a while I get that little twinge of, maybe it's time for me to step aside and let somebody else do it. And most of the time I'm like,
you're still
I love
in the field.
This. Yeah.
You're still in the field. You still bring value. That's kind of why I like the job I have at PSI. I can still touch the field from time to time, because if you don't, you lose it.
You do. I was doing programming, so I work 410s, and I usually program on Tuesday or Monday and Tuesday, and then I download on Wednesday, and then I shift gears and go either, put together what I programmed, or re-download because I screwed it up, whatever it is. But you know what I'm saying? That's the so I try to say Thursday for out in the field day.
Aren't you lucky? You can save your days.
I can.
Every time I plan my day, somebody hits the blender for me.
No, because I'm the senior. I'm the HMFIC, so on the system, and that's it. Like whatever pace we need to get stuff done is set by
head main fire guy in charge.
Head main fire guy. What's in charge?
Yeah. Right. See, and
what did you think?
I thought exactly that. That's why I puked it right out at you, because I'm good with acronyms.
Well, so I can kind of pick and choose, and I'll go out in the field and go, well, this is one we got to tackle, and really get into it. And I want to do it with my apprentice. Every time I touch this thing, I want him right there with me, so that because if I'm troubleshooting and he's not there, I'm wasting his time. I'm wasting my time, because this guy needs to pick up. What if I get hit by a truck? Right? I mean, it could happen. I ride a bike. So
just like Bruce used to say out at the plant, why couldn't I get shot by a jealous husband? Why is it a truck? I'm just saying.
But still, I want a maximum amount of brain turnover from my head into his, so that he can pick up when I'm laying down. And he's going to turn out here shortly. Yeah. And then I got another one right after that. I got to do the same thing. So, we keep moving forward. So I'll save up like my raisins and nuts for when it's what did you think I was going to say? Anyway, save it up for when I know he's available. Yeah. And so I can set my programming days up. So you sit at your desk and program, or think about how you're going to do it and how you're going to interface stuff. And then you've got whatever inherent snaps are built into the architecture that you don't know are there. We had one the other day. It baffled us. For years, this thing has worked perfectly. With in the type of system I work on, you can call a point a specific type. Is it a trouble? Is it a supervisor? Is it an alarm? Is it a utility? It was a utility point, and everything's working great. You can call it whatever you want. It's a utility point. If it changes state, the program picks it up. It goes, yeah, that's changed state. What do you want me to do with this? Yeah. Okay, well, I want you to send this code out. No.
Not today, yeah.
No. So out of the blue,
the one finger salute from the panel.
It goes, nah, we're not going to do that today. On the most modern ones I've got, they're the most modern, up-to-date, these are the Ferraris of systems, and you're telling me that I can go to the old, antiquated ones from the 70s and 80s. But do
you know why?
Because they don't. It's probably overthought.
No, they don't test code out to the last.
Probably.
They barely test it. Does it say good enough? I mean,
it's good enough.
I've watched a special on the space shuttle that had 5 equivalent of 286 type 66 computers. And when they wrote the program, they wrote it out to every iteration.
They had
which,
to.
Which you can't do nowadays, to be fair, because the computers are so much more powerful. But I mean,
but the new stuff, they can run it. They can run all those simulations.
Yeah.
Either way, it just happened one day. One day it just said, "Screw you! I'm not going to communicate anymore." Yeah. All right. Well, now I got to get it up, right? So I start to work on it, and my wife happened to be going through a surgical procedure, so I didn't have much time. So I said, "Look, I'm out of options. We have to call in the techs, and they've got to come in, and he'll probably do this," which is exactly what he did. So he changed it over, and then boom, the signal went right through. So now I'm looking at this going, oh, what the hell am I going to do? And it's one of those types of times when I look back and I go, okay, there's another way to handle this. So remember years ago in a galaxy far, far away, if you had a fire, you would just close a set of contacts. And then your 5104 would look at
dial up.
It would go, I don't see my 4.7K EOL, therefore that zone is I'm on fire.
Zone 1, and
zone
I'm going to send a code 1.
So I'm going to call that number and go zone 11. It's so simple. And now now I've got contact ID, and I've got 9 million codes I can send, and I can, this is the third stall in the men's restroom on the second floor.
And where is it in the number string?
Oh God.
What partition is it?
I looked at this
partition?
And I just went,
that's security, isn't it?
I just went, okay, I'm gonna go back to contact closure because I don't need that kind of resolution.
Right.
I just don't. So we'll
just tell me
do
it
that.
happened.
We'll just tell. All I want. Here's what I want you to do. The building fire bad roll trucks.
Right.
Right. When the trucks are rolling, they're already in communication with our dispatchers. They're already telling them exactly what the hell's going on. They never come up there.
Because you're in a big campus, you have your own security center.
And they know, and everybody knows everybody. They're going to throw eggs at each other and all that crap. So, it's a known entity. And but with the company, and I'm using your monitoring company, and those guys are incredible. They're incredible. I can set up. I can work with John and say, I want exactly this. Yeah. And so now I can go back and get better resolution without having to go through and do a contact ID string that's this long.
Oh, I know.
Because of the way that they built that. And we were for the first time able to go, hey, look, this fire, we want you to know that it's, where we land helicopters, so that you could very well have a magnesium issue going on. You could really have a foam system. Foam is flowing.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So we were able to do that, which we could have done the other way too. But this is like getting into the minutia of that and being able to get this right, and then dialing it in. And then I looked at all the code I've been dealing with, because here's all the panels I've done this with and all the panels I've yet to do this with. And I went back and dialed in the same code in every one of the panels. So if it's this configuration, the code is exactly the same. Yeah. If it's that configuration, then that's the code. Is this so and I have the ability to do this so that I, because they're paying me to go through and look, you do this, we'll leave you alone. So I'm going to make sure that when this thing does its thing,
this is what
and
you
that
get.
Code works.
Yeah.
Then you can, if you could cut and paste, which you can't in our system, but if you could cut and paste, you could just take that and pop it into here.
But you have a template, is what you've done.
Exactly. And I keep going through making the labels correct, everything, so I can keep revisiting it and tweaking it and tweaking it, and making sure that it works, and dialing it in so that, hey, it's not a mystery. You don't have to come into a system, open up the programmer, and go
try and figure out what the devil's going on. So
because it doesn't match. Because you're like, well, who wrote this? This guy wrote it in French. This guy wrote it in English. This guy wrote it in German. What the hell's going on?
So I took over. I might have shared this on the last one, but I took over a program up at the VA hospital that had 13 contractors in it.
Boo, nerd.
Yeah, boo. When I was out at the big plant on the west side there that makes the little chips.
Frito?
Yeah, right. So you remember the EST school and message equals label.
I never went to EST
so
school.
they had this message equals label, and blah, 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 and we don't use addresses anymore. They were really proud of it back in the late 90s. And I'm like, time out. Every designer, every engineer in the world uses addresses. They don't give a rip about labels. Yeah. What are you saying?
Right.
And so I had to clean up too many EST programs. And guess what EST happens to have? And when they do the class, I told you every label, which is the part that makes the system work, not the message the customer sees in the screen. This is for programmer land.
Because the CPU looks at the label and pivots on what the label is in order to know how the program's going to
I'm looking at that, and EST has a hard-coded address for every single one of those 65,000 devices that it can have. And it's only 5 digits. Simple enough, maybe 6. And, you got a 20-digit or 40-digit label linked and blah, blah, blah. So we got tired of the messes and clean up behind programmers. And like you just did, we did on a bigger scale. And I when I came to work at PSI, I actually saved that thing that me and these 2 other guys built, the label structure.
I remember seeing
3-digit building. Yep. If it's not a water flow or if it's a smoke or a general alarm, then put the type of device, 3 digits. Then the address, hard-coded address. So you'll always know what point came, because it'll post a trouble and it'll post the label for the trouble, not the message. Well, guess what? If you have it smoke one hallway, you're never going to find
You're
that.
never going to know where that is.
And so me and 2 other guys spent like 4 days, and we built this thing and use it today. And I sold a change order up at the Hill when I worked for that other C company. $15,000 reprogrammed the rest of the thing to the way I had done it.
Yeah, so the standard is there.
So the standard's there up the VA hospital.
I like that.
And then what they did is, to save money, which was smart on their behalf, they did their own maintenance and testing. So we made all the program changes right before the annual test.
Nice.
So they had their 100% full test because we changed the program that radically.
Yeah, you have to.
But and then, they all went to EST school too, but, myself and 2 other guys just like you, made that template. We were given the latitude to do it, and I brought it to everywhere I've gone. And now that EST's come up with 4, and Sean just got back from school, was getting back.
Oh, did he?
We're talking about doing a similar thing for the 4, try and make a template so that whether it's, whoever does the programming.
But you know how EST says, well, this is card position 2 and all that good stuff. I thought, well, that's unique to EST. No, the new Simplex, it tells you exactly what the hardware point is by bay and all that stuff. Because the new stuff, like the stuff that I haven't been trained on yet, then I'm just kind of, I'll call in the experts when I need it. Man, you talk about a change in technology. Yeah. Man, these guys are building some
Siemens does similar, except their latitude is more. Every card has a hard address, but with EST, physical hardware slot 3 is always card 1 software.
Right.
The first 2 slots are always a CPU. It's card 0. But with Siemens, didn't matter what order the card names were in. You could put card 70 in the first slot unless it was a DACnet. Then it had to always be a DACnet, and it always got a.
See, those are those little intrinsic things that happen with every single system.
Every single system. Yeah. So now I'm back to EST, so I'm starting to forget what they train me on Siemens. But you're right. It's what I like to do is use what you already have. Use the architecture, whatever's already laid out in front of you, so you don't have to do extra work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work hard, but I don't want to work any harder than I have to.
I agree.
And now I'm getting closer to retirement, and I actually have a date now.
Really?
Yeah.
When's your retirement date?
8/27/27.
8/27. Okay.
That'll be 50 years of doing fire life safety. That's enough.
8/27/27.
I started 8/27/77.
I'm going to make mine 8/27/27.
And even in her passing.
I'm going to retire right now. I'm going to do it on the 26th.
So, yeah, John's doing it 20 days earlier. So, even in her passing, my wife gave me that gift.
Nice.
So she was 15 years younger than me, so I was seriously looking at working until I was
Cradle
80.
robber.
No, she robbed the grave. But, but even in her passing, she gave me a gift. I can retire. I don't know if I want to, but I mean, I probably want to retire my day job, but
but
maybe I'll consult or something. I promised Charles that I would work for at least 5 more years.
For those of you who don't know, Gary lost his wife last year, and
February.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, February.
Well, I know you know
February
when it was.
8th, yeah.
But February. And so, not necessarily unexpected, but not expected. I mean,
Right.
she had some health issues.
It was accelerated.
And it wasn't a parachuting accident or anything like that.
She had heart failure. I'll just say it. She had heart failure. She didn't get her transplant.
But it's just you're able to move forward and rebound from that, and it's you're obviously watching the transition, because we didn't see each other over the summer. I don't think, except the podcast, and we've talked on the phone maybe a couple times. But tonight, like when I saw you at school the other day, you've lost weight, you're happy, you got a smile on your face, and you're able to move past.
Well, you've lost someone. You understand that. I lost my mom at Thanksgiving, so the two most important women in my life died within 3 months of each other. But my wife was an awesome cook, and I cook breakfast and steak. That's it. So, or I heat things in the microwave.
But whatever you're doing now is working. I mean, you look good.
I'm just not eating when I'm not hungry.
Yeah, that's the key.
That's really. But yeah, I still miss her. I'm getting used to life without her. I had my first dry day on the 29th last month, where I didn't bawl or even get a wet eye.
Nice.
Yeah, I slept until noon, but I was sick. But I'll still take it. I mean, for anybody who's lost someone, grief's a mother. It's horrible. But
it is.
What I've done, and I'll share this, just put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
I have not stuffed the feelings. I don't care if I cry in front of another man. She was my best friend.
There you go.
And everything I've read or been told about grief, the more you stuff it, it just sits there, and it's going to come out when it's like a volcano. It will get relief. So
you will. You are feeling it even if you don't think you're feeling it, and it comes out in many other ways.
It may seem stupid, but I actually have certain songs queued up that will literally, they were like our favorite songs. But I've got to where I don't cry when I hear a wedding song, but other ones, and I literally force myself to get it out. And it may seem silly, and you go to counsel or whatever. I'm not a counsel type person, but I've got the daily meditations. I'm doing the grief work. The main thing, I'm not stuffing it. I want to get done. I need to get on with life.
And you don't drink, so
I don't drink.
And I'll be honest with you, drinking, don't help.
No.
And I'm an alcoholic, so I don't have any problem. And
you've
got many more years in AA than I do.
32, December 15th.
Yeah. So I mean, you're like the grand champion of that.
Just a day at a time, like anybody else.
I don't drink because there's no benefit. There's no benefit to me, and if I'm an ass on coffee, you should see me on alcohol. So the whole thing, to me, when I was in the grief groups, because I for those of you who don't know, I had 2 girls. I lost them both, and not at the same time. And the standing in front of men and saying it's okay to cry, you should cry, and you could immediately see a division in the room.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Some of these guys are like, "You're an idiot. We're never going to do that," and the other ones are going, "I didn't know you can." And I'm like, "Well, of course." You would not have tear ducts and emotions if you weren't supposed to use them. You have every right to suppress that crap all you want. It will come out in
whether you like it or not, and it's going to come out when it shouldn't.
Yep. It'll come out in anger. It'll come out in alcohol. It'll come out with alcohol and anger. It'll come out in violence. It'll come out in depression. You'll throw yourself off a roof. Who the hell knows? But if you deal with that, you let those emotions come up and let them flow, you will feel better. You chemically, your body will release what it needs to get. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it. Yeah.
No, and like I said, I miss the hell out of her. And now I'm going through anger because of some things that happened, and I'll probably get over it. But she was too heavy to get the transplant, and instead of losing weight, her solution was to eat more, because that's how she dealt with things. And I'm not dissing my wife; I loved her to death, but she was in some ways a polar opposite to me. Doctor told me that, watch this, I won't eat for 6 months. Now give me the dang transplant. Yeah. My wife cared about people.
But
I am the person I am because she encouraged and made me change.
It's like a yin and yang. Like she completed you, and you guys are opposites. Yeah, I would be the same way with my wife. I would be absolutely.
But thank you for noticing. I'm trying. I am literally trying.
You look good in a bathing suit. That's what I want to say right there.
For crying out loud, I don't wear bathing suits. And that's for my friend that lives in Kansas. If she listens to this,
to me, having because same thing. I had a lot of loss, a lot of grief, a lot of crap happened to me. If it wasn't for my ability to talk through it, cry about it, and music is a huge part of what I do. Yeah. It's a huge part of what I do. Like I'll listen to books.
I can't make it, but I listen to a lot of music.
I can't make it either. I'm like a drunken monkey in a tin factory.
I would sing to my wife. She said it was good, but I think she was lying to me.
I would, to me, having music, because I have an iPhone, so I can just choose whatever music I want, because I have all that subscription. Whatever I like. Today, if I like Marilyn Manson, that's who I'll listen to. Tomorrow, if I like Moby, that's who I'll listen to.
What do you think I listen to?
I'd say 70s rock.
Primarily Tchaikovsky.
Oh, okay.
Classic. I mean, I'm eclectic.
I do too. I don't listen to it much anymore, but I was a huge Mozart, not a Bach fan as much as Mozart and
Tchaikovsky.
But even Gershwin.
Yeah.
Like I love Gershwin too.
But anyway, how do we get off troubleshooting?
Because that's what a discussion's about. The discussion, the thing that I want this podcast to do, and every visitor I ever have, is to sit down and talk about what's relevant in the technical world, what's relevant in our life and what we do. That's why we're always looking for people who do other things besides fire, because to me, everything is fire. It's either fire, horses, ham radio, coffee, music, what else?
A couple other things. I sit at the beach now because I have beach property. That's what we used to do. And
hope you clam.
If you have, I don't like clams. I was going to have to learn. She loved them. She loved them.
Yeah, clams are the Long Beach is awesome.
I know it's this weekend, but I go fetch the trailer. But my career and whatnot really took off when I married Benita. Good. She was my cheerleader. Yeah. And if you have someone that supports you, your career can go. What I do at PSI is just I'm blessed. Yeah. So I'm supposed to, and I'm supposed to bring the kids along, and I enjoy it. And if you enjoy what you do, it's not as much work.
No, actually, and that's what we were talking about this before the podcast today, was just like I've got all these things happening, and it's very tough for me to go, well, I don't, should I step back from teaching? Well, no. I mean, it's my life. It's what I do. And even when I was in the military and had to pick up that ball and run with it, all of the techniques of teaching, folks that I had to teach, because as you go up in rank, your job is to mentor them. And if you don't mentor somebody whose job it is to keep you alive correctly,
in deep weeds,
then this is not a fun thing.
Well, and I didn't, until I prepped for this, when you told me what we were going to talk about, I didn't realize. I just took for granted. When I have the patience and I've stopped, I can be a good teacher. But there was a time in my life in my 40s, I would just blurt it out. If you didn't get it, you're just dumbass, move on. Yeah. And what I had to do is I had to step back and learn that as a teacher, I have to find that level of understanding whoever I'm working with.
Yeah, that's excellent.
It's not come up to their level or they come down to your, don't use terms like that. Find the level of understanding. And face it, I'm sure you've seen them. There's some people just shouldn't do this. They're not geared for it. Yeah. It's not just on them. It's just not their thing. I mean, I can't be an accountant.
Yeah,
I can balance my checkbook. Yeah, no.
No.
But I can tell you about wiring. I can find problems, and people just. I remember looking at wiring diagrams for cars when I was going to be a gearhead. That's why I was actually going to be a mechanic before I got into this. But
as you do,
things happen, and it looked like spaghetti. Now I can read them. And one time when my dryer went bad, it was one of those great big Maytags, like $1,000. Double stacker. You could dry women's clothes in the top, and a couple pieces of my wife's clothing was very expensive. I had to order from overseas, special. And so it died. It had a membrane switch, like the dang fire alarm panels. Yeah. And they wear out. They're only good for like 10,000 cycles. I had 4 kids. So I called Maytag. They wanted $450 for a membrane switch. That's a $75 switch all day long. If you mark it up 3 times, okay, it's $200. Here's the part number. Well, they wouldn't order me just the membrane switch.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to buy a piece of plastic for $400. Like, I'll never buy a Maytag again. You know, that Maytag repairman can be sitting there doing nothing because nobody's going to buy his stuff. So as I had it apart and I was looking at that, trying to figure out how I could make the membrane switch, there's the wiring diagram. It's like, oh, yeah, dummy, you know how to read those. So I pull out the diagram, which used to look like spaghetti, and went down to Ace Hardware, bought a doorbell button, got my fine tools out, cut open the ribbon cable, soldered the doorbell button on, took my stepper bit, drilled through the plastic front right where it said Maytag, and then it said A-tag or whatever. That doorbell button. That's how you started the dryer. Worked for good. So then my daughter, who happens to be an engineer, comes back to visit one day. So and she stayed. And said, how do you start the dryer, Dad? I said, well, press the doorbell button. She gets a Sharpie and writes start above it. I love that kid.
That's funny.
You know, so, she's a PE.
So this spills out into other parts of your life.
Yeah.
And that's critical for people to know and to think about.
Yeah.
When I'm teaching students like mathematics, I'm a terrible mathematician. Like I was not geared to come into this planet and teach people algebra. That doesn't
me
work
either.
for
That's the tough part of my teaching.
Oh my God. So, but I do know all the rules.
You know, it's like here, look at it on
exactly.
Google.
Yeah, you Google.
I just held my cell phone up for
I know
those.
Google. I know Google foo.
Yeah.
So, I've got this method of teaching where I usually have the class, especially if it's a big class, shout out all the answers. Like I don't, even though I've done it enough that I know, you know, there's only so many damn equations.
I have to look at the answer key.
Well, I do on certain questions, but the mathematics, you know, I just do. So I put the equation up. I say, well, what equation are we going to use? And if you tell me E equals MC squared, well, that's what we're going to use. Now, we're not going to get the right numbers.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Find Y, draw the red arrow. Here it is.
I mean, this isn't quadratic, you know, or differentiation or whatever. But it's just simple algebra, and I'm doing it, and we all do it as a class, and I do it the same way. I teach it the same way every time to every class, the same exact methods.
Sneak in on one of yours so I can do
simple.
Mine better.
And if I make a mistake, like if someone gives me 0.2 and the actual number is 2. You know, or decimal place is off or something like that. And I know it because, I can look at the number and go, well, that divides and okay, 0.2 is what it is. I'll use it. And I'll put it up. And, of course, when you do your check on voltage drops, it doesn't work out. The math won't work out. And you've got all these cross-checks. If you know what your applied voltage is, you know what your current is, you know what your resistance is in the circuit, you can work it all the way through. And then we work all the math through, and then we double-check ourselves to make sure we're within tolerance. If I can screw up in front of a whole class full of students and go backwards and erase it, and then you can vapor lock on a test and go, no, I can back up here and work my way out. Yeah. And I'm willing to make a mistake in front of the class knowingly. And generally, you'll have somebody in the class who's mathematically acquainted because that number's wrong. One of you guys called out the wrong number. You know what I'm saying? So it encourages participation. It's a whole different
Sometimes
method.
It's hard to get that started.
It is.
It's that's the challenge of coming back to teaching. You know, when I taught for ADT when I was regional training manager, I mean, I knew that focus system inside and out, and that's part of how I got the job, and I could do that thing blindfolded. I had a ton of confidence, but you know, I haven't touched algebra in a couple of years. I graduated in 77, so 47 years. Yeah, I'm a bit rusty.
My ex was mathematically inclined, and she would actually go pick up an algebra book off of like a used bookshelf store and sit down and do all the math. She does bookkeeping, so it's like that's right up her alley.
Yeah, right.
Me, no, not so.
I
could not imagine. But here's another thing. I'll get a book on physics, like nuclear power, nuclear weapons, and then I don't know the math, but I know the physics of what's going on, and I can go to somebody like Sean and go,
Yeah.
I'll understand
Yeah.
the neutron
Yeah.
bombardment. And then he'll go, well, it's really simple.
I know.
You must,
And he'll
I'll
draw
teach
it
you
out on a whiteboard.
Here's
I
all the
better
math.
erase that. Hang on.
Don't do the math. Just tell me how the hell it works, because I can see it in my head. And if you could see, if you're driven like I am to see a problem, and then I can just take that problem and describe it to a student, they may not be able to interpret, from a verbiage what that picture is. They may have to draw it themselves, or they may not be visually driven at all. So now you've got to know, well, wait a minute, this kid isn't visually driven. They're.
Let me throw this in what we're talking about, what we used to do for a living, like troubleshooting. Because I installed so many systems and I was above the ceilings running raceway, pulling wire, whatever. Like when I'm down troubleshooting and I'm looking up at the ceiling, I'm picturing in my mind that wire running
where
between
it's all going.
Here, there. And I remember I was doing it, one of the kids goes, "You're picturing that in your mind, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry. Do you want me to draw it for you?"
Yep.
No, that's a gift.
So on those drawings I did when I got back, I said, I think this is the path. I just drew out what I think the path is. And now that's not the path because I haven't proven it, but that's what I think it is. That's a working theory until I prove myself otherwise.
Right.
But what I do know for sure
Where
is
did
that
the theory
this is
come
here,
from?
this is there.
Years and years of experience looking at it.
Because when you go to half split, you don't half split by going to the next device.
No,
and
you
I've
don't.
had technicians do that. Well, we'll take this one apart. We'll take this one apart.
Oh, that's
and you're
leapfrog.
like, oh my God, dude, I'm about ready to hit you with a chair.
If
We've
it's
got to move forward.
But if it's a 6 or 7 zone or 6 or 7 device thing, sometimes you do got to leapfrog.
Yeah, that I understand.
Once in a while, there's a time to leapfrog, and another time, there's like, especially if you think it goes up that 40-foot device that needs a cherry picker to get to. Yeah, skip that one. Go to the next one in line.
That's funny. Well, I think we've had a hell of a lot of fun.
I have. Thanks for letting me come back.
I am super. We didn't do a round table like we talked about, but we just.
I think pushing the experience.
Yeah,
pushing the experience that, like, you've got it, I've got it. Hopefully, because be it fire, I'm a fire geek, but the circuits are the same. They're all low voltage circuits. I mean, the architecture between a card access system, a fire system, a Berg system, and even some of the. I mean, I remember when it first went digital, everything was in 16s.
Right.
Why? Because it was hexadecimal. The program I learned to program on was a Data General. It was done in octal.
Right.
Zeros to
base
sevens.
8, 0 to 7. That's what the Navy used for its NTDS database, was all octal. And so if you if there was a track number, if there was an aircraft and they were tracking it, then the track number would be like, 22764.
Yeah.
That would be but that's an octal.
Yeah.
So if you gave a track number with an 8, like if you called it out, everybody went, "What the hell are you doing?" There's no
8.
There's no 8
because it's
octal.
0 to
what
7.
Are you, dummy? And and so when I teach like binary, and I don't ever teach octal, but binary, and then I talk about hex, where it comes from and how they group, because how big binary numbers get. Everything now really revolves around binary. Yeah. Like even switches have ones and zeros. They don't even have on and off, unless there's like 1 is on and off is 0, and that's a 5 volt. Remember when TTL logic was out? That's a 5 volts was a 1 and 0 volts was a 0. And
and the 1 is a solid line, so it means that the current and stuff can pass through the solid line, but it can't get across the 0.
I never heard that. But that's good.
I think it came from Europe. I read it somewhere.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, that's why if you look at the switches where it's 0 and the line means you're connecting to the other 2 sides.
I never realized that. They put me in a digital. I'd done only analog in the Navy, and then I went back for a digital side of it to learn the new equipment. And that was the one class that stumped me the most. And I did not understand it. Like I could not get my head wrapped around it. I'd done so much analog work. And I knew how tubes and transistors and resistors and all that garbage. And now they're going, yeah, well, we just divide it into ones and zeros and we just make a word about it and we send it in here. And I got in my last class of the equipment was called a Slick 32 and then SLQ 32. And if you did the V3, which was the variant that I worked on, which could actually transmit, that was another night class. So there's 4 of us in this night class.
Oh, wow.
And those are the guys who are going to learn the output side. And the very first night, the guy goes, okay, well, just like the SIOC and the CPU, it loads up like this. And I just went, oh, God.
Help me.
And I put my head down on my desk and I went, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And this EW1 that was teaching this course goes, he starts asking me a couple questions. And I said, I just went through like 16 weeks of school on this and digital. I don't understand any of this crap. I've done it all by memory.
Yeah.
And now we're going to do this crap again. And he says, the three of you could take a break if you want, or you can stay here as I teach Petty Officer Brooks what he doesn't know. And
Wow.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
He didn't do that as a smartass.
Yeah.
In 20 minutes, in 20 freaking minutes,
He got through to you.
that guy opened up my head and taught me what I didn't learn in over 16 weeks of school. And he went, and I just came alive. And I went, oh my God. He goes, yes, you're not the first person who
Missed it.
who took the simplest thing and overcomplicated it. And I mean, and all of a sudden, like, it was all coming in. I'm like, oh my God, now I want to go back to the 12 weeks of school because all this crap I missed. I had him re-enlist me at the time.
Nice.
And I stole from him. I stole from Buchanan, another, or not Buchanan, but another UW1 I know, and probably 4 other instructors, the technique that I teach with. I stole it right from him.
Yeah.
But that guy who re-enlisted me, that petty officer,
got to you.
was my hero because he could look at me and go, oh, I know exactly what's wrong with this, and flip the script and open up my head.
Yeah.
And I could kiss his forehead. He just absolutely was brilliant. And there was a lot of guys like that in the Navy, and I just stole from all of them the best techniques and give it to my students. So.
There you go.
All right, my brother. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, this is
It's been enjoyable.
all right.
Thanks for listening to the Half Watt Podcast. We always want to hear from you, and we encourage you to email us at halfwattpod@gmail.com with questions or even your own stories. Funny, crazy, or praiseworthy, we want to hear it all. You can follow us on Instagram at halfwattpod to stay up to date on our feed. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And share us with a friend, the best way to help us grow. The Half Watt Podcast is a production of Now Hear This Studios.